They say a hospital corridor echoes every secret it hears, but tonight, beneath fluorescent lights that hummed like distant hornets, the walls seemed to hold their breath. Ebony Johnson shuffled past the nurse's station, one hand cupping the gentle curve of her 8-month belly, the other clutching the appointment card she'd nearly forgotten on the kitchen counter. She'd practiced calm breathing all morning, convincing herself today's routine prenatal checkup would be uneventful. Yet the moment she stepped into exam room 12, a peculiar chill rolled over her skin. Dr. Thomas Whitaker, silver-haired, starched collar, and a resume long enough to need a second frame, didn't bother to look up from the tablet in his hand. "Name?" he barked, as if Ebony's presence were an inconvenience clogging his schedule. She gave it, adding a polite, "Good afternoon, doctor." He answered with silence, sliding a blood pressure cuff onto her arm like someone bagging groceries he did not intend to buy. His questions came sharp and personal. Diet? Exercise? Family history? When Ebony mentioned her prenatal vitamins, he scoffed. "Those brands aren't made for women with your demographics." The pause before "you're" dropped like a stone. Ebony felt heat rush to her cheeks, but before she could speak, Dr. Whitaker turned to the nurse and muttered, loud enough to sting, "We keep seeing these high-risk cases from certain neighborhoods. Taxpayer burden, if you ask me." The nurse froze. Ebony heard her own heartbeat pound inside her ears, louder than the fetal monitor's gentle whoosh. She swallowed the rising knot in her throat, forcing herself to breathe for two. She'd spent months guarding this baby from stress, yet here, within the very institution sworn to protect life, she was being reduced to a statistic wrapped in bias. Across town, Marcus Johnson scanned the clock on his office wall, 2:15 p.m. He was only 15 minutes away, 15 minutes from arriving, 15 minutes from discovering that the woman he adored was being demeaned by the very doctor meant to safeguard their growing family. Unaware of what waited, Marcus grabbed his keys and whispered into the empty room, "Hold on, EB. I'm on my way." A fluorescent bulb flickered above exam room 12, then steadied as if the building itself braced for what would happen the moment Marcus walked through that door. The hospital's exterior, all mirrored glass and manicured hedges, belied Ebony's earliest memories of healthcare. Growing up in the East Side neighborhood of Brookdale, clinic visits felt like scolding sessions, lectures about diet and discipline that rarely accounted for food deserts or 24-hour shifts at the diner her mother once worked. By 14, Ebony understood the code: speak softly, never question, gratitude was the price of treatment. Now 32 and manager of a community arts center, she had vowed her child would inherit a world less poisoned by that code. Ebony met Dr. Whitaker only twice before today. Their first encounter was routine. He'd skimmed her chart with disinterest, recommended additional screenings given the higher incidence of gestational diabetes in African-American mothers, then excused himself mid-sentence to take a call. The second visit, he showed up 11 minutes late, offered no apology, and used the word compliance so often she felt like a delinquent on parole. He never asked about her mural project or the prenatal yoga classes she led for neighborhood teens. To him, Ebony was data on a screen: BMI, blood pressure, risk factor. Marcus, on the other hand, was an auditor for the city's Civil Rights Division. Numbers and patterns were his comfort zone, but he also possessed an uncanny gift of transforming cold data into stories that won lawsuits and changed policies. When Ebony told him about Whitaker's earlier slights, Marcus suggested switching doctors. Ebony hesitated. New provider waitlists stretched for weeks. "We can manage," she'd insisted, "as long as he's competent." Competence, she now realized, was hollow without respect. Inside exam room 12, Dr. Whitaker pressed the Doppler probe against Ebony's abdomen. The baby's heartbeat thumped steadily, strong, resilient. Yet the doctor frowned at the monitor. Slight tachycardia," he muttered, though the numbers read perfectly normal. He removed the probe and scribbled instructions for an unscheduled ultrasound across town, adding, "Let's be proactive. With mothers your age and ethnicity, things can turn quickly." The nurse, her badge read Anna, shifted uneasily. She knew the hospital's patient rights brochure by heart, and she'd seen Whitaker's terse notes flagged before. But reporting senior physicians carried social cost. Anna's family relied on her paycheck. She couldn't risk retaliation. Still, the look in Ebony's eyes, a blend of fatigue and rising anger, gnawed at her conscience. Outside, Marcus weaved through Friday traffic, rehearsing jokes to lighten Ebony's mood. He pictured them later sharing takeout on the couch, laughing as their baby kicked in time with their favorite jazz record. He didn't know his wife was fighting the urge to walk out mid-appointment. He didn't know Anna had secretly texted a resident she trusted. Dr. Whitaker's crossing lines again. Pregnant black patient. But the resident was scrubbed into surgery. His phone sat unanswered. Time ticked. Ebony thought of the mural she'd sketched on her phone, a pregnant silhouette surrounded by blooming magnolias, symbols of dignity and perseverance. She'd planned to unveil it at the community center next week. Now, doubt crept in. How could she champion dignity for others while sitting silent beneath Whitaker's disdain? At 2:28 p.m., the doctor signed the ultrasound order, then paused at the doorway. "Do try to stay within the dietary guidelines this weekend," he said, gaze fixed on her belly, not her face. "Your baby depends on your discipline." Ebony inhaled, meeting his stare with newfound steel. "My baby depends on a doctor who sees us as human," she answered softly. Whitaker's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the doorknob rattled. Marcus stepped into the room, reading the tension like a headline. His eyes flicked from Ebony's flushed cheeks to Dr. Whitaker's clenched clipboard. In that split second, the air thickened, pregnant with a confrontation nobody yet fully understood. Marcus closed the door gently behind him, a deliberate softness that contrasted the volcanic pulse in his temples. He greeted Dr. Whitaker with professional courtesy, but the restraint in his voice signaled danger. "I'm Marcus Johnson, Ebony's husband. Anything we should discuss?" Whitaker offered a thin smile. "Just routine precautions," he said, tapping the ultrasound requisition. "Given certain predispositions," Marcus cut in. "Predispositions or assumptions, doctor?" The question dangled, razor sharp. Ebony watched Marcus's shoulders square, the stance he adopted when deposing hostile witnesses. Whitaker's nostrils flared. Anna lingered by a supply cart, pretending to organize gauze. From her vantage, she saw two stories converging. One of institutional arrogance, the other of a couple who wouldn't yield. She recalled her own mother's complicated birth years ago, how dismissive care nearly cost lives. The memory pushed her fingers to tremble. While Whitaker addressed Marcus in clipped syllables, Ebony's phone vibrated. A message from her best friend, Harper, flashed. "Girl, you good? Don't let them stress you." Harper, a photographer, had documented patient advocacy marches across the city. Ebony typed back a shaky reply, then noticed Anna glancing her way. For a heartbeat, patient and nurse shared silent solidarity. Marcus opened his leather folio, habit of always carrying evidence. "Doctor, I reviewed Ebony's prenatal labs last night. Everything's within normal range. Could you explain the urgency for an off-site ultrasound?" Whitaker bristled. "Medical judgment. Not everything fits on a spreadsheet." His tone skirted insult. Marcus nodded slowly. "Understood. But when patterns of unnecessary referrals correlate with minority patients, spreadsheets become civil rights exhibits. I'd hate for your name to headline that report." The words struck. Whitaker stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You threatening me?" "I'm protecting my family," Marcus replied. "And every family who walks through those doors." Across the hall, a young resident, Dr. Naveen Shah, finally checked his phone during a lull in surgery prep. Anna's text jolted him. He'd seen Whitaker override residents' treatment plans before, always citing experience. Naveen slipped out, headed toward exam room 12. Meanwhile, Harper, sensing something was off, started a live social media stream titled "Holding Hospitals Accountable." She framed her intro around keywords like healthcare discrimination, implicit bias, and pregnant black mothers. Within minutes, comments flooded in stories, outrage, solidarity. The algorithm began propelling her video across feeds. Back in exam room 12, tension spiked when Whitaker dismissed Marcus's concerns with a curt, "If you don't trust my expertise, find another provider." He moved to exit, but Marcus blocked the path, not physically, just presence. "We will," he said. "Once the patient advocate documents this encounter. Kindly wait." Ebony's pulse thundered. She feared escalation, yet felt a swell of pride watching Marcus stand firm. But Whitaker, eyes narrowing, muttered, "Typical." The single word carried centuries of poison. Anna's gasp broke the silence. Whitaker pivoted to her. "Something you want to add?" She swallowed, gaze flicking to Ebony. "Only that patient respect is part of our oath, doctor." Her voice quavered but held. Whitaker scoffed. "Stay in your scope, nurse." At that moment, Dr. Shah appeared in the doorway. "Actually, she's right." He addressed Marcus and Ebony first. "I'm Dr. Shah, OBGYN resident. Everything okay?" His calm presence contrasted Whitaker's rigidity. Marcus briefly outlined the concerns. Shah nodded, requesting to review Ebony's chart. Whitaker resisted, but Shah's badge carried institutional authority, resident physician, but with the hospital's Diversity Council emblem. Whitaker relinquished the tablet reluctantly. Shah scrolled, brow knitting. Vitals are stable. No indicators warrant emergency imaging. He looked at Whitaker. Did I miss something? Before Whitaker could answer, Harper's live stream popped up on Anna's phone, a push notification. The camera faced Harper's determined gaze as she spoke about Ebony's experience without naming her. Anna's throat tightened. This moment was bigger than a single appointment. Minutes later, hospital administration's PR director received an alert. ## protect Black mothers trending locally. She dialed the on-call risk management officer. Crisis alarms activated, corridors whispering of reputational fallout. Whitaker sensed his authority slip. You people blow everything out of proportion, he muttered under his breath. Marcus's eyes flashed. Ebony instinctively reached for his hand, grounding him. Breathe, she whispered, echoing their Lamaze coach. Outside, thunder rumbled, though the forecast was clear, a storm of consequences gathering. Lightning never touched the city that afternoon, yet the hospital's power flickered twice. Coincidence, perhaps, but to Ebony it felt like the universe flicking a switch from passive to urgent. Dr. Whitaker stormed down the corridor, white coat billowing like a retreating flag. Marcus exhaled, but relief was premature. Battles seldom end when one soldier walks away. Dr. Shah closed the exam room door gently and pulled up a stool. First, let me apologize, he said. You deserve dignity and transparent care. He outlined a new plan, on-site ultrasound within the hour, review by maternal-fetal medicine, and a patient advocate present at every step. Ebony nodded, tears pricking her eyes, not from weakness, but the abrupt contrast between neglect and compassion. Meanwhile, Whitaker descended to the administrative suite. He found Ms. Karen Alvarez, Senior Risk Management Officer, reviewing the spike in social media mentions. Doctor, she greeted coolly, we need a statement. Whitaker bristled. Since when does this place cater to internet mobs? Alvarez slid her tablet forward. Comments, screenshots, the phrase racist doctor climbing search rankings. Since reputation equates to funding, she said. Sit. Explain. Upstairs, Anna escorted Ebony to the small ultrasound suite. The monitor glowed, revealing the baby's profile, tiny nose, hand curled near its mouth. As the sonographer captured images, Ebony whispered, Hi, little one. Mama's right here. Marcus squeezed her shoulder. Shah observed silently, ensuring metrics stayed within safe ranges. Everything looked healthy, yet tension escalated elsewhere. PR Director Melissa Grant convened an emergency call with the hospital's board chair. Coincidentally, Marcus had audited the board 2 years prior, investigating discriminatory billing practices. His name rang immediate bells. Grant realized the husband's civil rights credentials transformed a PR hiccup into potential litigation. Back in the ultrasound room, the sonographer flagged a mild placental calcification, common at 32 weeks but noted. Shah explained calmly. Ebony appreciated his thoroughness. But the moment the probe lifted, a contraction rippled across her abdomen, unexpected, slightly painful. She inhaled sharply. Anna checked the clock. 3:07 p.m. contraction timing began, every 8 minutes, then 6. Shah ordered observation in labor triage. Marcus's mind raced. Stress-induced preterm labor? He cursed under his breath, blaming Whitaker's cruelty. Ebony focused on breathing cycles, determined not to spiral. Downstairs, Alvarez pressed Whitaker. Did you reference the patient's race in clinical justification? Whitaker deflected. Population-based risk is standard. Alvarez countered, your remarks appear personal. He reddened. Look, I've practiced for 30 years precisely, she interrupted. 30 years equals public scrutiny. Pull one wrong thread and the entire quilt unravels. Unbeknownst to both, Harper's stream reached local news stringers. A reporter messaged Harper requesting verification. Harper replied, patient's husband willing to comment soon. She hoped Marcus would agree. Exposure meant leverage, but also risk. Upstairs, Ebony's contractions steadied at 5-minute intervals. Shah paged the attending on call, Dr. Elena Morales, requesting assessment. Morales arrived within minutes, reviewing charts and the incident report Shah had begun drafting. She frowned. We're keeping you overnight for monitoring, she told Ebony. Let's ensure baby's safe and your stress stays low. Marcus stepped into the hallway to call Harper, torn. Legal action could secure accountability, but immediate focus was Ebony's health. Harper, on speaker, updated him. Whitaker's name trended, activists rallied outside the hospital entrance, live broadcast scheduled at dusk. Marcus's jaw tensed. Not yet, he said. First, my wife. Back in triage, Ebony closed her eyes, visualizing her magnolia mural blossoming across bricks, each petal a breath, each leaf a heartbeat. Anna whispered, "You're strong," tracing rhythmic circles on Ebony's back. In administration, Alvarez made a decision, place Whitaker on immediate leave pending investigation. She drafted the notice, HR director co-signing. Security would escort him off-site once delivered. She informed Dr. Morales, who texted Shah, "He's suspended. Keep family updated. Document everything." At 3:24 p.m., elevators pinged. Security approached Whitaker, who reacted with incredulity. For what? A misunderstanding? He protested. The guards remained impassive. As doors slid shut between floors, Whitaker caught a final glimpse of a waiting room monitor scrolling Harper's stream, "Protect Black Mothers Live." But up in triage, a stronger contraction bent Ebony forward, knuckles white against the rail. Marcus rushed back, heart in his throat. Shah checked monitors, fetal heart rate dipped briefly, then stabilized. Tension ratcheted. Ebony whispered, "Tell me we're okay." Marcus kissed her forehead. "We're okay," he promised, though uncertainty clawed his chest. Outside, protesters hoisted signs, "Healthcare without hate, listen to Black mothers." Police arrived to manage crowds. The hospital, once silent glass, now resembled a stage set for history's next act. Hospital security escorted Whitaker toward the staff exit, but halfway through the atrium he spotted the demonstration outside, cameras, placards, Harper's live rig streaming his disgraced shuffle. He veered abruptly, cutting into an adjacent corridor. The guards followed protocol, maintaining distance, yet Whitaker's sudden detour triggered silent alarms meant for elopement risks. Doors locked. He was cornered near the medical records archive. On the 7th floor, Ebony's contractions slowed, an encouraging sign, but Dr. Morales ordered continuous monitoring until morning. Shah stayed past his shift, charting meticulously while Anna fetched ice chips. Marcus stepped into the hallway to stretch, phone buzzing with unknown numbers. One voicemail stood out. Chairwoman Deborah Lee of the hospital board. Her message, "Mr. Johnson, I'd like to speak, immediately." Marcus dialed back. Lee apologized for the unacceptable encounter, then offered a private meeting in the executive conference room, 15 minutes. Marcus hesitated, but Lee added, "Your presence could expedite reforms starting tonight." Ebony urged him to go. "If it protects our baby and others, do it." As Marcus crossed the lobby, protesters recognized him from Harper's earlier post. A spontaneous chant erupted. "Marcus, speak. Marcus, speak." Security guided him through a side door. Inside, board members sat stiffly beneath framed portraits of philanthropic founders, all white, all male, save Lee's own recent photo at the end. The room smelled of filtered air and tension. Lee opened, "Dr. Whitaker's suspension is immediate. We intend to announce a full equity audit. But we need your cooperation." Marcus listened, catching subtleties. This was crisis management, not contrition. He countered, "My cooperation depends on institutional accountability, not optics." He presented a draft action plan he'd written on his phone: mandatory implicit bias training, community review board seats, transparent maternal outcomes reporting. Lee's eyebrows rose. A few directors murmured dissent. Marcus leaned in, voice steady, "Adopt these reforms or I file civil rights litigation by sunrise." Back upstairs, Ebony dozed fitfully when alarms erupted, code yellow, missing physician. Nurses exchanged glances. Anna glimpsed the security feed, Whitaker darting through back corridors. Apparently he had refused escort, shouting about overreactions before slipping away. Hospital policy required lockdown until staff safety was ensured. This placed Ebony's floor in partial lockdown. Doors auto-sealed. Shah, now technically off-duty, couldn't leave even if he wanted. He checked on Ebony, explaining the situation. Anxiety clenched her stomach harder than any contraction. "He won't come here, right?" she asked. Shah assured her security was posted. Yet, in the dim archive corridor, Whitaker rummaged among files. He located Ebony's physical chart, older notes, original intake forms. He took photos with his phone, insurance info, addresses, ammunition for deflection, perhaps even intimidation. Unbeknownst to him, cameras recorded everything. Security Director Paul Simmons conferred with admin. Whitaker was now a trespasser. Simmons authorized non-lethal detention. Officers moved. Meanwhile, Lee's meeting with Marcus stalled when her aide burst in. "Doctor on the loose, brandishing personal data." Lee's composure cracked. Marcus stood. End lockdown on the maternity ward first, he insisted. Board members hesitated. Liability weighed heavy. Lee nodded. Orders were relayed. In triage, doors unlocked. Ebony exhaled. But her relief was short. Another contraction hit, fierce and sustained. Monitor alarms beeped, fetal heart decelerations. Shaw called for Dr. Morales. Ebony gripped Anna's hand, terror replaced earlier strength. The baby, so stable a half-hour prior, now struggled. Security cornered Whitaker near service elevators. He resisted, ranting about witch hunts. A scuffle ensued, his phone slipping from his pocket, skittering across polished floor. An officer retrieved it, screen still lit with Ebony's chart. Evidence. Lockdown lifted hospital-wide. Marcus raced for elevators, Lee trailing with legal counsel. Protesters cheered as security marched Whitaker outside in cuffs. Police had been called. Phones captured everything. The phrase 15 minutes later, her husband changes everything flashed across social feeds, an echo of the story title none of them yet knew. But upstairs, Ebony's baby still fought for oxygen. Morales prepared for potential emergency C-section. Marcus burst in, gowning up as alarms wailed. The real battle, the one that mattered beyond headlines, was seconds from culmination. The operating room lights glared like unwavering interrogators. Ebony lay on the table, surgical drape shielding her belly. Dr. Morales moved with measured speed, every instrument placement precise. Shaw assisted, eyes darting between monitors and Morales's hands. Marcus stood at Ebony's head, masked, trembling, but steady enough to thread his fingers through hers. "Stay with me," he whispered. Ebony managed a weak smile. "Always," she answered. The anesthesiologist confirmed spinal block efficacy. Time dilated, a minute felt like epochs. Outside, Everythi, Lee watched through the observation window, flanked by counsel. She had issued immediate adoption of Marcus's reform plan, emails flying to department heads. Yet her gaze held deeper worry, real lives hung in balance beyond policy memos. Incision. Suction. Retractor. Morales narrated each step for transparency. The baby's heart rate dipped again, 90, 85. "We're going now," Morales said. Clamp. Cut. Silence. Then a cry. Weak, then stronger, filling the sterile air with the sweetness of rebellion. Shaw announced, female infant, 5 pounds 9 ounces. Tears flooded Marcus's eyes, Ebony's shoulders shook with relief. The nurse whisked the newborn to the warmer. APGAR scores climbed, 6, then 8. Healthy. Morales closed the incision, voice gentle, "She's strong, like her mother." Ebony exhaled a prayer of gratitude. Marcus kissed her forehead, whispering the name they had chosen months ago, Magnolia Grace, after the mural blossoms that symbolized dignity persevering through adversity. Meanwhile, security processed Whitaker's arrest. Police charged him with harassment, attempted data theft, and obstruction. Footage of his outburst streamed across national outlets within hours. Hospital spokespeople announced sweeping reforms and partnership with community advocates. Journalists framed it. Racist doctor humbled, black family triumphs. Back in recovery, Ebony cradled Magnolia skin to skin. Harper arrived with a press badge swung around her neck, camera slung at her side. She paused, respecting the sacred hush. Marcus nodded. She snapped one photo, mother, father, newborn, all three radiant in dim lamplight. Anna entered, handing Ebony a gift, a single magnolia bloom in a water cup. "Thought she deserved her namesake," Anna said. Ebony's eyes shimmered. Shaw followed, bearing discharge papers for next day if vitals stayed strong. He added quietly, "Your story will change protocols." "Already has." Lee visited last, offering a written apology on hospital letterhead and a copy of the newly approved reform plan, signed unanimously. Marcus took it, but his focus remained on Ebony and Magnolia. "Hold institutions accountable," he murmured, "but cherish victories in heartbeats." As dusk settled, protest signs turned into celebration banners outside. A local jazz musician played sax by the entrance, notes wafted up like lullabies to newborn wings. Inside, Ebony closed her eyes, feeling Marcus's arm encircle her and their daughter. She remembered the corridor's earlier chill, then savored the warmth now blooming. Yet as she drifted toward sleep, her phone buzzed with an anonymous text, "Whitaker isn't the only one. Watch for the shadows." Ebony's pulse quickened, an unsettling hint that the hospital's corridors still held secrets. The battle won did not mean the war was over. Morning sunlight filtered through blinds, striping the room in gold. Ebony studied Magnolia's tiny fingers curled like question marks ready to write new sentences in the world's ledger. Marcus dozed in a chair, shoes discarded, curls mussed from a sleepless night spent memorizing their daughter's every breath. A gentle knock, Anna entered with discharge papers and a canvas tote bulging with donations from viewers who'd tuned into Harper's streams, diapers, swaddles, handwritten notes. People wanted you to feel supported, she said. Ebony traced a note that read, "Thank you for speaking up." Harper followed, live stream equipment packed away. She set a printed photograph on the bedside table. Magnolia's first cry captured mid-note, parents' eyes glistening behind masks. For the mural launch, Harper said. Ebony imagined the photo projected beside her magnolia blossoms, a testament to resilience. Shah stopped by on his way off shift, clutching a coffee. Audit teams begin today, he told them. If you're willing, the board wants your input on patient experience panels. Marcus, outside, news vans rolled away, headlines shifted to the next story. But inside Ebony's heart, the core message pulsed, claiming humanity is daily work. She penned it in a journal between feedings, hoping Magnolia would read it someday. Never mistake silence for peace. Speak even when your voice quakes. By noon, a wheelchair awaited. Anna tucked the magnolia bloom behind Ebony's ear. As they exited, staff lined the hallway, nurses, residents, even Lee. It wasn't a parade of perfection, rather a corridor acknowledging wrongs and pledging better. Ebony felt a tremor of hope. In the lobby, protesters had transformed their chants into lullabies as they dispersed. One sign left propped against a planter read, "Justice delivered." Ebony smiled, then noticed another, handwritten smaller, "Ongoing vigilance." She carried both sentiments out the revolving door. Weeks later, at the Community Arts Center, Ebony unveiled her mural. The magnolia silhouette glowed, petals painted from dozens of shades collected from neighborhood volunteers, each hue a story of perseverance. Harper projected the hospital photograph beside it. Marcus spoke briefly, voice resonant. Systems change begins in rooms where courage meets compassion. Applause followed, but Ebony's gaze stayed on a group of expectant mothers in the front row, hands on bellies, hope mingling with apprehension. Afterwards, one woman approached. "Your story kept me from skipping my appointment," she confessed. Ebony squeezed her hand. "Good. Go in knowing your worth." That evening, Ebony, Marcus, and Magnolia watched sunset from their porch. Cicadas hummed, a countermelody to the newborn's coos. Marcus rested his head on Ebony's shoulder. "Remember the room's chill?" he asked. "Feels distant now." Ebony nodded. "But not forgotten. We'll stay vigilant." She opened her journal, adding one final line beneath yesterday's entry. Magnolia's first lesson, our voices grow gardens where prejudice once planted weeds. She closed the journal, kissed her daughter, then faced the camera Harper held for a final recording. Ebony spoke directly to viewers. Bias thrives in silence. If you see injustice, whether in a hospital, a boardroom, or a comment thread, don't scroll past. Speak, share, support. And if you need courage, borrow mine, I have plenty to spare. She smiled, magnolia bloom still tucked behind her ear. Like, subscribe, and share the story so every mother, every family knows their voice matters. Let's keep planting seeds of change together. Harper ended the recording. The screen faded, but the call to action echoed beyond pixels, carried in human hearts ready to uproot injustice one voice at a time.